BBOR, Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia. Black Box Ned 88 on Instagram for the bonus podcast. Well, we had something different scheduled to talk about today. However, I would like to say that history is now unfolding in front of us, but I can't really say that. What I would say instead is that the steps prior to history unfolding in front of us are upon us. The steps prior to history in the making are upon us. And yes, indeed, Joe Biden has selected a running mate for the 2020 general election against Donald Trump. And it is none other than Senator Kamala Harris, another former presidential candidate. Well, first I would like to say that some of this here is a requested topic. Previously on the channel, we did an upload called The Dirty Secrets of Donald Trump, and one of the listeners requested something, either doing one on Joe Biden or Hillary Clinton. And this is a nonpartisan show. There is no left or right leaning either way. So in the description box, I will include some links to some previous uploads that we've done, The Dirty Secrets of Donald Trump, as well as the very first upload I ever did on this channel called The Crimes of Hillary Clinton. And you can see there learning more about Hillary Clinton and alleged war crimes and such. Once again, those are available in the description box. And the one on Hillary Clinton is the absolute first upload we ever did on the show. So it sounds a little bit robotic going through the narration. However, you know, first time isn't always the charm, as they say. Sometimes you need two or three for that. Okay, now on to today's discussion. What I can say about Kamala Harris as a running mate is a lot of people are outraged. A lot of people on both sides of the aisle are upset. A lot of the Democrats were not really taking a strong liking to Kamala Harris. The first thing I can say is that the Democrats are rather fragmented. I mean, the Bernie Sanders supporters of the Democratic Party were absolutely adamantly against Kamala Harris from the very beginning, and they were rather surprised of Joe Biden's choice for Kamala as a vice presidential nominee. One person who was not surprised about this was Scott Adams, and I talked a lot about Scott Adams last year on the channel. I sounded like a broken record mentioning his show, Real Coffee with Scott Adams. I tried to read all of his books, and what he said was that he predicted this months ago that Kamala Harris was going to be Joe Biden's nominee. As soon as she dropped out, the day she dropped out, he was saying that he was predicting she's going to be Joe Biden's nominee for the, she would be on the vice presidential ticket. It'd be Biden at the top and then Kamala Harris in the second tier position. And the reason why was Scott Adams predicted, number one, that Donald Trump would win in 2016. Not everybody thought that. I know looking back, it seems a little bit more obvious in retrospect. Hindsight is 2020. The rearview mirror is often clearer than the windshield. But the issue is, a lot of people didn't expect that Donald Trump would defeat Hillary Clinton. Scott Adams was very, very passionate that Trump was going to win the election. But a prediction that he made that did not come true was that Kamala Harris was going to win the Democratic primary. That didn't happen, and she dropped out much earlier than many of the other presidential contenders. The day after he dropped out, he's saying, okay, perhaps I was wrong. However, it seems like she'll be a shoo-in to be Biden's vice presidential nominee. And if I'm even using that word correctly, of course, we have to go through the convention process first. So some of the other things that we should say about how these nominees are chosen. It really was in the runnings between Kamala Harris and Susan Rice, the former national security advisor. And I was surprised because I thought that Susan Rice was from Maine, and she was supposed to be challenging Susan Collins, the Republican senator who's seeking re-election in Maine. After Brett Kavanaugh was confirmed, that Susan Rice went public and said that she was going to challenge Susan Collins and run for the Senate in 2020. Then when that didn't happen, I began to think, oh, perhaps she'll be on Biden's short list of vice presidential contenders, and that didn't seem to happen either. So who knows what's going to be happening if Susan Rice gets into the cabinet. Perhaps they would want something to do with her, Secretary of State or something thereabouts. But the thing is, Biden hasn't won anything yet. And if we actually want to talk about Joe Biden versus Donald Trump in the general election, a lot of people have a strong disliking to Kamala Harris for a couple of particular reasons. And somebody who summed that up was Tulsi Gabbard on the debate stage on national television. And I'm going to jump over to an article from BusinessInsider.com here that says, I'm concerned about this record of Senator Kamala Harris. She put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California, and she fought to keep the cash bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way. And that is a quotation that I was reading there, but I'm pretty sure Tulsi Gabbard did say that Kamala Harris blocked the evidence that would have freed that man from death row until she was forced to do so by the courts, and then she had to accept it. But everything else there, I mean, it was a very big, devastating takedown for Kamala Harris on the debate stage. I remember watching that. But the thing that really stood out to me about that was everything that we just said there, whether it's about the marijuana convictions, about the prison labor, Tulsi Gabbard's team did not do some deep dive research on that. The progressive commentators were talking about that stuff for months. I mean, these were their biggest points against Kamala Harris and why they didn't want her to win the nomination. What they were saying was that, I mean, we're hearing this stuff from Secular Talk, the Majority Report, Progressive Voice. They were just saying all of those things point by point, that Kamala Harris had those issues with the marijuana convictions, prison labor, the man on death row. They brought all of this stuff up, and a lot of other people were really dancing around the subject. When it comes to Joe Biden versus Donald Trump, it's going to be somewhat of an uphill battle, because I don't want to say that Scott Adams is right all the time, because he's not. He predicted that Kamala Harris was going to win the nomination, but she did not. But then he made a second prediction that did turn out to be true, that she was going to be Joe Biden's vice presidential running mate. That did turn out to be correct. And Scott Adams has said very clearly that Trump is going to win this election, hands down. He's going to win, and Biden stands no chance. We're going to find out in November. I don't know about you guys, but do you ever just go back and look at some of the older political news from like 2015 or something, and you can hear even conservatives are saying, yeah, okay, Donald Trump's saying some things that people want to hear, but he stands no chance in the general election. He's going to lose. There's no way Donald Trump is going to be president. There is a lot of that stuff going on that you can still watch here on YouTube, and it is quite shocking. So when you make predictions, I mean, there is always the chance that it could turn out to be false. And when you look at something like Donald Trump versus Hillary Clinton, Trump had a 30% chance to win. I mean, depending on which poll we're going to go to, as Thomas Sowell famously said, no one has ever approached me talking about polls. I have never spoken to a pollster. And if we're actually going to look at 30%, though, I've said some of this on the channel before, but we haven't talked about politics in a while. If you have a 30% chance of something, you got 10 different items. 7 of them are blue and 3 of them are red, and you put them in a bag and you shake it around, you reach your hand in, it's possible that you'll pull out the red item at a 30% chance. That's not unrealistic. So we shouldn't count Biden out just yet, but a lot of people are saying that with the choice of Kamala Harris as a running mate, she is someone who perhaps isn't adding too much to his campaign. Now, I really don't want to go down the pathway of talking about fiction, like House of Cards, or there was this movie called The Ides of March with George Clooney and Ryan Gosling. And the thing to say about that is they talk about how these political alliances are formed. I know that they're fictional and they're just dramatizations, if you will, but they're all about, okay, these politicians cut deals so that these events will happen in exchange for this person working for the campaign. They're going to get this position. And in the movie The Ides of March, they talk about how, okay, this person is going to cut this deal. You have to make him Secretary of State. And George Clooney is playing the presidential candidate. And he's like, oh, no, Secretary of State, I have to do that. Is that what happened between Biden and Harris? Well, on House of Cards, going in a different direction, back when we were allowed to talk about Kevin Spacey, things were a little bit different. But anyway, they have these things where people act like they're debating and they act like they're squaring off. But in reality, they're like, we have to fight so people don't know that we're actually having this alliance and we're actually on the same side. We have to make it look like we're contending. And if you don't accept that stuff, I know I'm just talking about the first examples that came to mind. Noam Chomsky has mentioned this stuff for ages in Manufacturing Consent, and in going on the other side of the political spectrum, to a different part of it anyway, Jesse Ventura, the former wrestler who has been the former governor of Minnesota, was like, politics and pro wrestling really aren't that different. You see the candidates debating, but in reality, everybody is friendly. They all know what's going on, and they all know how it's working. They are all on the same page, more or less. And you can definitely see that there are political structures, and it really isn't someone just coming up to the microphone, whether it's Biden or Kamala Harris, and they're saying that, hey, this is my vision for how the country should be. And they were talking about this on the show, Global Truths, which is hosted by Dr. Keith Suter, and the producer, Kate Mack, was asking him some questions like that. Well, do you think that Trump thinks this? Do you think that Biden thinks that? Do you think that Boris Johnson thinks this? And he just laughed and he said, oh, no. These people don't have moral compasses. And I would have to put Kamala Harris into that category. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. To get to that level, morality, ethics, those things all go out the window. And there are a couple reasons for this. Jordan Peterson talks about this a lot when it comes to climbing in the power process, where it's like, if you're not going to do the nasty things, then you're going to get run over by somebody who does the nasty things. So then you have to be capable of very destructive things, just putting your energy in a virtuous place. And what you really would want is to have somebody at the top of the power structure who is a good actor, someone who is actually doing things in a benevolent way, someone who can rise in the power ranks, who is capable of very dangerous things, but is choosing benevolence over tyranny. Okay, but where does that leave Kamala Harris in all of this? In case you can't tell by my tone of voice, I'm not crazy about her. I don't really like her that much. And from the beginning, I was like, Kamala Harris seems like somebody who is somewhat of a lackluster public speaker. Back in 2017, when we used to talk about politics much more frequently, we're following all the presidential candidates, and Kamala Harris was already on the list of potential candidates for 2020, even though she hadn't even announced that she was running yet. This was 2017. We only had like John Delaney and Andrew Yang in the mix. And then what they're saying about that is, I mean, I just was watching Kamala Harris on YouTube give speeches, listening to what she has to say, and I'm like, well, the Democrats seem to be wanting a progressive. She's not very progressive. The Democrats seem to be wanting someone who can be a magnetic public speaker. She's not a magnetic public speaker. I think she's improved in some ways. And on Real Coffee, they were mentioning some things like she would always laugh at her own jokes. She would always do very bizarre hand movements, like jostling around, twirling her hair at all times, and she definitely wants to turn up the I was about to say the ghetto image, but I can't think of a synonym for that. Like, oh no, girlfriend, only at certain times. I mean, I definitely don't think she cares too much about any of that based on some of the other media that we've seen of Kamala Harris, but she definitely has to work on her laugh, number one. Let's not kid ourselves, image is important. And Babylon Bee was talking about that, the concept of image. They even put out this tweet when they were saying that Joe Biden misreads his teleprompter and says, the new ticket will be Biden and his running mate, insert woman of color here. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. Image is one of the things that is going on here. And I know that that isn't something that a lot of people really want to accept, but when you want to look at the other possible contenders for running mates, a lot of people were asking, they're posting about this on social media, why didn't Biden choose Elizabeth Warren? Elizabeth Warren was removed from the list of potential VP candidates ages ago. And I mean, we sort of have to face the reality of that. No matter what side you're looking at, no matter what political party you're representing, if you were to have two people on the ticket who were both in their 70s, I don't really know if that covers all the bases, or I just don't really know if that's the best campaign strategy, the most effective campaign strategy. And I was on Andrew Yang's Instagram page as he was posting something about Kamala Harris being chosen as the nominee for Joe Biden. She is Joe Biden's running mate, we should say, getting our terms as precise as possible. And a lot of people were saying, Andrew Yang, we wanted you up there. Andrew Yang is a very engaging public speaker. He's very charismatic, much more charismatic than Kamala Harris. The only thing is, there is a high chance if Joe Biden is elected to the presidency, he might die in office. I am not being silly. I mean, if he's going to be taking the oath of office at age 78 or whatever it is, Jimmy Carter came out and just flat out said that he would not have been able to do the president's job at age 70, Carter talking about himself. So, I mean, if Joe Biden were elected to the presidency, he very well may not live throughout the whole thing based on how stressful the job is. Even Donald Trump said that in his very first interview, after swearing in to the oath of office. When he gave his first public interview, he said, "You cannot believe how difficult this job is." And I'm really curious what would happen if Biden does indeed become President of the United States, but we do not know yet. It is only August of 2020. We are still a couple of months away from the November general election. When it comes to Joe Biden, I mean, you really have to wonder, is he just somebody who is making alliances? I know I said he doesn't have a moral compass, but in terms of all the bizarre behavior around him, I mean, the groping, the sniffing, I mean, people coming forward like Tara Reid saying that he sexually assaulted her. Joe Biden is definitely not what the Democrats wanted, but the problem is the alternative to Joe Biden was not Kamala Harris. Not only did she drop out, perhaps because of alliance building and giving her support to Biden, not only did Kamala Harris drop out, but the large fraction of the Democratic supporters for Bernie Sanders wanted something completely different. The Democratic Party is very fractured right now in August of 2020. You have a lot of people that are leaning toward Bernie Sanders and his brand of democratic socialism, and then you have a lot of people who don't want Biden. The average American does not want Biden. Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, Green, they do not want Joe Biden in the White House. However, what a lot of Democrats were thinking, and perhaps you've seen them on Facebook, perhaps you talk to them at family reunions, what they're saying is, well, I mean, he seems like the only person that is well known enough to defeat Trump. I mean, Andrew Yang and Kamala Harris weren't very well known prior to 2015. They just went for Biden because they thought he was a safe vote. I repeat, they thought Biden was the safest vote. They didn't like Bernie's brand of politics, and they thought Biden was the safest alternative. I've had this conversation with people 100,000 times. And what you can really see is that we're just going to find out if it's going to work or not. This Biden-Harris ticket. Biden-Harris, it almost sounds like embarrass. And, I mean, like I said, I really don't believe that Kamala Harris is somebody, if I have to take a very hard stance, I don't like her. I don't like anything about her. In fact, I mean, I think that she is somewhat of a cold-blooded sociopath who is trying to put on the charm, but in all reality, it is very simply just not working. She's trying to use glib and superficial charm, but everybody can just see right through it. She must have been through an enormous amount of coaching and presentations, because I did think that she was getting better. When I was watching her speeches at the end of 2019, all those things that I mentioned about the odd movements, the touching her hair at weird times, trying to be like all sassy and such, she really scaled down on those things. And I mean, when somebody is working on a presidential campaign to the level of where Kamala Harris is, she has coaches, she has people advising her, she has people like consultants that are telling her how to act, trying to improve her image, and they're paying attention to things like that, because my comments are not isolated. People were saying that all the time. One of the other possible nominees for the Democratic running mate for Joe Biden was Val Demings from Florida. Is she the representative from the 10th district, is it? I had never heard of her prior to a couple weeks ago. I'm a West Virginian, quite far away from Florida. But a lot of people were saying that Joe Biden should have chosen Val Demings because, you know, in pure terms of strategy, I am not a Democrat, mind you, but they're saying that if she were to be Biden's nominee, she's actually a little bit more in line with the progressive policies that the Democrats are talking about en masse. Not to mention, choosing somebody from Florida possibly could aid Biden in trying to collect Florida as a swing state for Trump. Once again, pure strategy. Like, the way I describe it is you're looking at two people playing a game of chess. What could this player do? What could that player do? That's really what it comes down to, it, as opposed to taking, like, just a pure left versus right stand. Although I've been very clear, I do not particularly like Kamala Harris, but that's just me, and I would love to hear what some of you guys would have to say in the comments section below. And I would just like to conclude with one thing that, once again, I've said it before on the channel in an upload ages ago, but I was sitting on the bus in 2016, and a guy sat down next to me, and he started talking to me. I asked him where he was from. He said Zimbabwe. And, we talked a little bit about the president of Zimbabwe at the time, Robert Mugabe, at the time. And then he made a bold statement when he said, Trump is going to win the 2016 election. And I'm like, oh, no, I think Hillary's going to win. I did not vote for Hillary, mind you. But I was like, I think she's going to win. Trump's just putting on a show. And that gentleman told me, no, Trump is going to win because he is telling people what they want to hear. That's what that guy told me. Guess what? He was right. I was wrong. About 5 minutes after Joe Biden decided that Kamala Harris was his running mate, and he went public with this, the Trump campaign did not issue a tweet. They issued a video referring to Biden as Slow Joe and Kamala Harris as Phony Kamala. Slow Joe and Phony Kamala. Are the name-calling tactics going to work in this round? We're going to have to see. I mean, what do you think about Kamala Harris as a possible running mate for Joe Biden? If you have anything to say at all, please drop something in the comments section below. We don't get political too much anymore. This is mostly a true crime channel, so please look out for some future things on the Zodiac Killer, the Golden State Killer, and we have something very big tomorrow in a case we really haven't talked about too much. Some new material, if you will. All right, that's all for me now. Please share your opinions. Anything is fair game. Open discussion. And I will see you guys on Instagram for the bonus podcast. That's all for me. Until next time.